The world knows many powerful spies who single-handedly rewrote the history of the conflicts between entire nations. Kim Philby, Mata Hari, Aldridge Ames. There were such people in every country. Many still remain in the shadows, their names undisclosed to avoid sparking an international scandal. The world knows many triumphant stories about how just one agent or one special operation could change the course of the war. One of them was Agent 88, better known as Eli Cohen, the man who managed to deceive Syria's military and political elites.
He was so successful that he can probably be called one of the best spies of the 20th century. He did not kill anyone, did not plant any bombs, and he achieved the result thanks to intelligence, charisma, and the ability to take risks correctly.
Cohen was born in Alexandria, Egypt in December 1928. His parents were Syrian Jews and moved to Egypt, although they brought him up according to the traditions of his native Aleppo. From a young age, Cohen understood that Jewish culture and traditions had to be defended with blood and sweat against Arab enemies. In 1949, his family was forced to move to Israel due to pressure on the Jewish people. Eli remained in Egypt. He coordinated Jewish and Zionist activities, assisted Israeli intelligence services, and occasionally informed them about the sentiments of the Egyptian public. Some researchers of Cohen's biography believe that he took part in Mossad special operations in Cairo. However, there is no data to support this. It is only known that the Egyptian government discovered the Jewish espionage ring and exposed it. Cohen was tortured, interrogated, but no evidence of involvement was found.
In 1956, at the war's start, Israel occupied the Sinai, leading to Eli Cohen's detention by Egyptian police. He was expelled from the country along with the rest of the Jews of Alexandria at the end of the war. He arrived in Israel on February 8, 1957.
In his new homeland, it was difficult to work. He also did not really want to go into civilian life after exciting conspiratorial adventures. However, in 1957, counterintelligence drew attention to him. He was recruited and appointed as an analyst. The work was not very interesting. Cohen sat in the office all day, analyzing documents and translating them from Arabic. Eli had only one thing on his mind: adventure. Therefore, he resigned from the service and went to work as a clerk. He held this position for 2 years, until the Mossad drew attention to him.
I only know that he was recruited by the Mossad, but I don't know if it was against his will or if he himself quit the shop and went to them. I can't tell if the management insisted on recruiting or if he caught the agent's attention by chance.
Although the family and friends claim that Cohen never said what he really did. No one even knew that he worked for the Mossad. However, according to Israeli sources, Eli twice tried to join the intelligence service, but was refused. And that is why he worked as a clerical worker in a supermarket. However, in the late 50s, the Mossad was not going through the best of times. The country was preparing for a large-scale battle, and it was necessary to win it in 2 planes. The first was an armed confrontation. The second was diplomatic struggle and strategy building. The blame lies with the Egyptian president, Gamal Abdel Nasser, a staunch and ruthless enemy of the Jews. He called Israel a boil on the body of the Arab people. Since Egypt was the most powerful country in the region at that time, such statements at the diplomatic level were regarded by other Arab countries as a call to action. Nasser took the first step in 1958.
In 1958, Egypt signed a document with Syria that would give rise to the creation of the United Arab Republic. According to the document, Syria and Egypt would unite the army, some areas of the economy and join forces in the fight against the Jews. Nevertheless, the country existed only until 1961.
According to Israeli sources, the Mossad was looking for a person who could become their agent in Syria. Candidates were unsuitable, and Cohen was forgotten. So, Special Service Director Issa Harrell ordered selection from the rejected list. Dozens of people were monitored, but only one passed all the tests: Eli Cohen. After 2 weeks of surveillance of him, the Mossad decided he was simply the perfect candidate. At first glance, it was hard to recognize Cohen as a Jew. And he didn't really resemble an agent. His trump card was intelligence.
Israel was at a very disadvantage then. Info receipt problems. They needed to find someone who could be the eyes and ears in Syria. But, on the other hand, the information provided by Cohen could have been obtained in other ways. It was possible to take photographs or install surveillance equipment.
After the test, Cohen was sent to a 6-month training course. Usually, agents are trained for a single task. Roughly speaking, a narrow-profile specialist. Eli underwent comprehensive training. He was taught everything that could be useful in the task, picking locks, installing listening devices, using radio transmitters, and learning Morse code. However, the main emphasis was placed on his linguistic skills.
Cohen was trained very carefully. I know at least 10 people who contacted him. Throughout the time they trained him, they provided all the information needed to carry out the tasks.
Cohen was an atypical agent for the Mossad. If you look at those who participated, for example, in the operation finale to kidnap Adolf Eichmann, then Cohen was their complete opposite. Not at all in good physical shape, almost without muscles. But he knew several languages, and most importantly Arabic. To refine this skill, he worked with experts from the Special Linguistic Unit, Unit 131. They meticulously shaped his Syrian accent. According to the plan, Eli Cohen was supposed to turn into Syrian businessman Kamal Amin Tarbet.
Unit 131 was a very old department within the intelligence service. It predates Israel's creation. Arab Jews in Arab villages collaborated with Arab agencies, providing mood data. This is how the history of the unit began.
In 1961, Cohen was sent on a mission. To cover his tracks, his journey began in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. One of the largest Syrian communities lived there, which included not only ordinary citizens, but also politicians and even high-ranking military officials. The story was this: after a long stay in Argentina, Kamal Tarbet was looking for ways to return to his homeland in Syria to expand his business and continue living there. And to do this, he had to establish ties with local residents. Cohen successfully coped with this task.
Cohen quickly joined Syrian community life. Everyone knew him as a businessman who loved to chat, party, and usually roamed the streets at night. Soon, he was accepted and respected by politicians, diplomats, and military officials working near the Syrian embassy.
However, all these acquaintances and noisy parties were just a cover. To get to Syria, he needed to establish a connection with Abdul Latif al-Hashem, the editor of the newspaper Arab World in Argentina. He was a truly influential man, and on his recommendation, anyone could be allowed to enter any country. Cohen came to him, told him his story about the business, and he did give him a letter of recommendation. In addition, he asked to give something for his son, who was also in Syria. Later, an acquaintance with the editor's son will open almost all the doors to any Syrian political and military cabinet for the spy businessman.
Mahed al-Adir, a Syrian with ties to NATO and the CIA, helped him move to Syria. He was introduced to Cohen and asked for help. He took his Opel, put Cohen there, and they drove to the Lebanese-Syrian border. It was the only safe option to cross the border, and they succeeded.
Cohen arrived in Damascus in 1962. He didn't seek a place to settle, but followed Mossad's orders to reside near embassies. Politicians, diplomats, military attachés lived there. Almost the entire elite of the country. And the first thing he did was give the letter to the editor's son, which he gave him in Argentina. They became friends, and he began to take Cohen to various parties, where you could often meet officials of not the lowest ranks. From that moment, Cohen fully earned their trust. Everyone knew him as a successful businessman and even offered him help, which he would gladly accept later.
He didn't tell us where he worked. Initially, he claimed collaboration with security firms. He didn't go into details, but Mother knew something was off. Eventually, she suspected he worked with special services.
One of his first tasks in Syria was not to infiltrate the political elite, but to hunt down former Nazis. In 1960, the Mossad captured Adolf Eichmann, the main initiator of the Jewish question, in Argentina. He was kidnapped in the middle of the street, flown to Israel and executed after trial. According to the Mossad, Eichmann's main associate, Alois Brunner, was hiding in Syria. Cohen's task is to find him and report to the Mossad. Cohen went to pubs, visited museums, and talked to different people. Everyone had seen a man like Brunner, but no one knew where he could be found.
Alois Brunner, one of Adolf Eichmann's main associates. As head of the SS Special Forces, from 1939 to 1945, he was responsible for the deportation of more than 100,000 Jews from Vienna, Berlin, Greece, France, and Slovakia to death camps. Eli Cohen never managed to find him.
After months in Syria, Cohen was recalled to Israel for new assignments. The information he received regarding the mood of the Syrians or the data on Brunner's stay was of no use to the special service, and therefore he received 3 new instructions.
First, he was to inform Mossad of any military movements in the region that he learned about or overheard. Importance didn't matter. Secondly, to report on all military, political, and social rumors circulating in the country. And third, it was important that he report everything related to the Syrian economy.
Unlike most agents who try to gain the trust of the country's top leadership, Cohen tried to stay away from such people. He communicated with people of Class B and through them learned about the news he needed. This step is explained very simply. If an unknown businessman, who has not lived in Syria before, began to quickly get closer to the political and military elite and ask how everything works here, then it is obvious that this would attract the attention of the Syrian special services. Cohen therefore tried not to give himself away. The information he gathered mostly came from bars, restaurants, and local journalists.
Eli Cohen survived in Damascus for so long. This meant that he never slept, but was always on the alert. All those years, he kept a close eye on everything happening around him.
It is generally believed, including thanks to cinema, that Eric Cohen was at military bases, photographed from inside the power of the Syrian army and transmitted this data to the Mossad. In fact, his role here is exaggerated. He had never been to military facilities, he was only nearby during various excursions. He photographed the bases from afar, sometimes drawing sketches. However, researchers argue that this information was insignificant, as the same data could have been gathered by simply sending up a reconnaissance plane. Another myth about Cohen is that he was allegedly Syria's deputy minister of defense. First, he never even knew him personally. Secondly, such a position did not exist at that time. His true achievements, however, lie in the plans for the reconstruction of the Jordan River. Cohen learned about secret Syrian installations that were supposed to change the direction of water movement and thus leave Israelis without access to water resources. He immediately reported this information, and in 1964, Israeli fighter jets bombed the dams, completely thwarting the Syrians' plans. They did not return to this project again. There is no final confirmation, but perhaps it is this information that will later become the reason for his exposure.
The plan was to redirect the Banyas River to a tributary of the Jordan River. Instead of letting the water flow to Jordan and then to Tiberias, which were under Israeli control, they wanted to deprive the Jews of water.
The only military location where Cohen was actually present was the Golan Heights. This is evidenced by his photos. It is not even a base, but rather an intermediate line between Israel and Syria, a problematic area from which the Arabs shelled the Jews. It is believed that Cohen was able to reveal firing positions that were not visible from a bird's eye view. Without his intelligence on several defense lines, the Six-Day War's outcome could have changed. Nevertheless, the Jews, thanks to the information received, were able to occupy this zone and still hold control over it.
He's credited with persuading the Syrian Ministry of Defense to plant trees on the Golan Heights for soldiers' shade. Over time, these trees became targets for Israeli fighters. After all, where they were planted, there were both people and launchers.
Usually, Cohen transmitted information through a special radio receiver. The usual transmission duration was 2 minutes, but his signals often stretched to 7 or even 9 minutes. He was warned that such long transmissions were very risky, as the signal could be detected. Sometimes he came to Israel and personally passed on information, and at the same time saw his family.
He was very happy when he came home. He did not leave us without attention for a second. I think he knew he had little time with us, so he made up for it with expensive gifts, toys, and dresses.
His last visit to his family was in November 1964. He tried to negotiate with the Mossad not to return to Syria, but he was refused and assured that the next business trip would be the last. And so it happened, but not because Cohen resigned from the service, but because the Syrians exposed him.
The secret visit was due to a child's birth. Cohen wanted to be present. It was his last trip to Israel. His sudden disappearance drew more attention from Syrian agents who were already following him.
Cohen was suspected as early as 1964, but no evidence of his involvement was found until 1965, when the leadership of the Syrian intelligence services changed. The agents came up with a plan to find the enemy spy. At specific hours, they established a silence regime, and this means that there should be no radio broadcasts. The only exception was the embassies, which operate on special frequencies, each with its own, known to Syrian agents. Cohen did not know about this and, as usual, contacted the Mossad. The signal was instantly detected. The messages were being transmitted from the embassy area. The Syrian special forces raided 2 diplomatic missions, French and Indian, but they did not find a spy there. Only frightened diplomats were in the offices.
Relations between Syria and France were just beginning to improve, so the Syrian government found itself in a very difficult position after that incident. It was the same with India. Everything was starting to improve, and then it all got ruined.
In January, the situation was repeated, again an unknown radio signal. This time, the exact location of the transmission was determined. Agents broke into Cohen's apartment, but he sat motionless at the table, pretending not to know what was happening. There was also no device for transmitting encrypted messages. And only after the search it turned out that the device was mounted in the table. It was not visible. Cohen was instantly tied up and sent to prison.
I was informed about his arrest the next day. I started a dialogue with him. Cohen said he lived in Argentina, and so did I. So I asked who he knew there. He mentioned a few names that I also knew. And he says that he prayed there in the mosque. And I recalled Argentina has no mosques. I then asked him to quote a few lines from the Quran. He replied that he had forgotten. And then I realized, this person was either a Christian or a Jew.
The Syrian president knew about the consequences of Cohen's detention. The longer they held him, the greater the chance that Israel would unleash all its might to save him. Therefore, Cohen was first interrogated, simultaneously tortured, and then sentenced to death. The sentence was carried out in the main square of Damascus. On May 18, 1965, Eli Cohen was hanged. His body was not handed over to the Israelis, it was hidden in different places so that the agents could not find it. There is even a version that he was dismembered and hidden in different parts of Syria. The only thing the Mossad managed to find was Cohen's watch.
In 2018, information appeared in the media that Mossad agents were able to steal Cohen's wristwatch from Syria. The director of the Secret Service, Eli Cohen, gave it to the agent's family. It is now at the Mossad headquarters.
Many myths and legends revolve around the life and work of Eli Cohen. In 2019, the series The Spy was released about the life and service of Eli Cohen, with Sacha Baron Cohen playing the lead role. A lot of books have been written, but all these are just collective images, because even his family tells different things about him. His children remember him as joyful and happy, his wife as sad and tormented. Someone knew him as Eli Cohen, and someone as Camel Tarbet. Someone says that his role in the story is exaggerated, and someone considers him a hero. But regardless, many victims and inevitable events were avoided thanks to Cohen.